My wife cheated on me 6 months ago. The guy she was with has just passed away. There's a lot to unpack here. I'm really struggling to identify my own emotions because there are so many layers to this. I'll start from the beginning to lay out the context. Around April of last year, I had a rough breakup with my best and only close friend I'd had in years. We were very close, and it became difficult and toxic. I fell into a bit of a depression and was doing the bare minimum to get by. My fiancée, now wife, knew this was tough for me. She was also struggling because she didn't know how to care for me. She grew up with a neglectful mother and is used to carrying the burden of taking care of others. She kind of started resenting me around this time because I was making things difficult for her. I'm on mood stabilizers for an emotional disorder, and she just didn't know what to do. She handled it really poorly. During this time, she became friends with a guy at work. I'll call him E. They became really close and bonded over shared emotional trauma. She had a rough childhood, which severely affected how she viewed relationships and had many issues with alcohol. But underneath sobriety problems, he was just a genuinely nice guy. I also became friends with him. I genuinely liked him. I didn't feel threatened by him, as I trusted my wife, and she had always been very honest about her feelings with me. We spent almost every day together, sometimes at our house, sometimes at his, stayed up until 4 a.m. just talking. Sometimes he would sleep in our bed with us. I started seeing him like a brother. I liked him, but also felt bad for him because I knew he struggled with sobriety and missed his ex-wife, who was trying to stay sober so he could see his 2 young kids. In May, my wife admitted she felt attracted to E. I wasn't surprised. He was a conventionally attractive guy, and I thought he was attractive too. I wasn't threatened by it since she told me. We had a whole discussion about how it's normal to find other people attractive because that's human nature, and we were still loyal to each other. In June, my wife told me she was having an affair with him. This had been going on all through May. She only told me because he felt guilty and threatened to come clean first, and she panicked. Because of the panic, she only told me the truth that I bit in the following weeks because she didn't want me to leave. Yes, she has compulsive lying issues. I got really good at separating these lies at that point. My wife is someone who feels like she owes people and they listen to her emotional problems. If it's a guy, she feels she needs to repay them with intimacy. Since she was attracted to E and he was attracted to her, it seemed like the logical answer. Obviously, it's exciting to have intimate encounters with someone new, though she wasn't thinking about me or how it would affect me until later. This isn't an excuse, just an explanation. First, my brain was in denial. I said, okay, fine, moving on. We can get past this, we'll be fine, and tried to keep functioning. She was hysterical and scared I would leave. For the first few weeks, she followed me wherever I went, paranoid that I would pack up and leave while she was away. She begged to see me. I was furious. I agreed to meet with him so he could explain himself. He said there were no excuses and that he was terribly guilty and regretful for betraying me that way. I wanted to confront him several times. In the months that followed, as the processing began, I would ruminate and wish I had ended it with him instead of letting him off the hook so easily. He just sat there and took it, knowing he deserved it, and honestly, that made me feel worse. We went to couples therapy and started unpacking everything. We're still doing that to this day. Over time, my brain started processing, and I became angrier, felt sicker, and my self-esteem plummeted. I already had issues with emotional abandonment while being vulnerable. Now it happened again in the worst possible way. We were supposed to get married in October. I had horrible stress about making the wrong choice, even though she was truly, genuinely remorseful, because it felt like our relationship had been tainted. But I didn't want to leave her. She was my best friend, and I didn't want to live without her. She didn't want to live without me and was desperately willing to do whatever it took to fix things. Even after we got married, the second something went wrong or we argued, my brain would instinctively panic and tell me I had made the wrong choice and was trapped with her forever. I tried to let her continue her friendship with E, even though she didn't want to. But it only lasted a few weeks before I broke down. I tried because the friendship had really been good for her emotionally. It gave her an outlet to talk about the awful things in her life with someone who understood better than I could. That's why I insisted on it. They were only allowed to be friends under my strict supervision, but I still felt this horrible anger and resentment every time I saw him. Eventually, I told him to leave, and he did. We got married. The reception was held at the place where my wife and he worked because we got the hall rental free. After the wedding, we found out that he had been sending free food to our wedding, even though neither of us had spoken to him in months. That was in October. Normally, I go through life quietly. Occasionally, anger bubbles up violently and unexpectedly. It's unpacked in therapy, and I still struggle. He passed away last week from a drug overdose. I found out through a post his ex-wife made on Facebook. I cried. I was disturbed in some way because he was so young, because I had unresolved issues with him, because we could have fixed things. I know that's just hindsight and regret talking. No, it wasn't a smart idea. I was so shocked and overwhelmed. I cried because he had been my friend, and despite everything, could never truly hate him. Even if I told myself I did, even if the anger exploded into something cruel, I still couldn't bring myself to hate him. My wife and my therapist say it's because I'm a good person. I don't believe that. I think it's just autism. I need to clarify where my overwhelmed feelings might be because my grandfather also passed away 8 days before he. I'd already been repressing these emotions, focusing on taking care of my mom and grandmother, and being practical and helpful. I hadn't given myself time to grieve because I was the only one who had to get things done so the others could grieve. Then I found out about E, and it was just the cherry on top. I feel like a harbinger of bad luck. shock. I'm not sure how. Two sudden and unexpected deaths 1 week apart. My wife didn't cry. I think she's going through the same type of initial shock I went through before. Kind that numbs you and makes you think about the whole situation. She cried for the children he left behind, not for him. I think she worked to emotionally distance herself from him, also convincing herself that she hated him. Now she's forced to face that the affair is completely hers now. He's no longer around to carry 50% of that burden. I still haven't uncovered all the layers of her feelings, so I can't provide more details on that. I don't think she knows either. It's disturbing to have people from your past die like this, especially when you have unfinished business. My therapist, who's very involved in this whole story, she was also his therapist, asked me if I felt robbed because now he's gone. I have to deal with the consequences of his actions alone. Can't just blame it all on him anymore. But I don't think that's really true. Sure, I think there's some of that since this will always be unresolved the rest of my life. But I think it also depends a lot on me making peace with myself about it. That's going to be incredibly hard. No one in my family knows about the affair because I don't want to taint anyone's perception of my wife. I intend to stay with her and work on fixing our relationship, and I refuse to have anyone looking at her badly. My family loves her, and they honestly try to be a better family to her to make up for her own, and I refuse to ruin that. My little brother adores her, and I won't disappoint him like that. So they only know that someone I was friends with just passed away. No one knows how much nuance there is, and I feel really alone. I don't know how to unpack my emotions. I can only see my therapist once a week, and it's expensive. I'll go to the funeral. I've already decided that. I need closure, I think. I don't know how to feel. I feel drained. I feel sad. I feel like I'll be stuck in limbo forever. Nothing will ever get resolved. I just feel lost, and I don't know what to do with myself.
Wow, this is complicated. Try not to focus on how you should feel. There's no right way to feel about this. So please be patient with all the emotions that must be surfacing, even if they are conflicting. I'm glad you're still seeing a therapist because I imagine it must be really hard not having anyone else to talk to about this, except for your wife, who is also part of the cause of these complicated feelings. I hope you find comfort in this group. I imagine continuing to write about it would at least help you organize your thoughts, even if it just makes it easier to find a starting point for what to discuss in your next therapy session. This will likely take a long time to process. Please try to be kind to yourself, sending healing thoughts.
Grieving a multi-layered relationship without closure is going to be a roller coaster. You seem very emotionally in tune with yourself, so I think you'll heal as well as anyone can. What I've learned from my own situation, though, is that there were people who triggered me into the negative aspects of grief. That's because they didn't do much to create a healthier situation, even though they had the ability to try, given that they're still alive. I think you should take all the time and space you need to process this. That's what I'm trying to say. And when you're thinking about your next steps, ask yourself, is my ex healthy, or are they inducing a positive experience for me?
I'm a jerk for not forgiving my mom for destroying our family. When I was 14, my mom came out as lesbian and left my dad. He was heartbroken, but explained that no one had done anything wrong in the situation. I became resentful toward my mom and refused to have anything to do with her. My mom asked how she could improve things. I told her she couldn't. I refused to answer her calls or messages. When it came time for my high school graduation, my mom asked for an invite. I told her that Lacey, my dad's new girlfriend, had already gotten one. She left a voicemail, sobbing, saying none of this was her fault. Then last week, I graduated from college, and since the ceremony was at a stadium, there were no tickets. Somehow, my mom found me and had the audacity to show up with her girlfriend. My mom tried to hug me, but I pulled away. Her heart sank, and I saw tears in her eyes. She said she was sorry, but I told her that this wasn't the time or place. She was ruining my day. She asked if we could talk. I agreed to meet her at a time and place. When I met her, she told me she couldn't change who she was because she was born this way. She asked how I could hate her for being a lesbian. I told her I was an ally and supported the LGBTQ community, explaining that I attend Pride every year with my little brother. I asked if she thought that was why I was mad. She shook her head affirmatively. I explained that the reason I was upset was because when she said she was born this way, it meant that she knew long before meeting my dad in her last year of college that she was a lesbian. I explained that she knew my dad was hopelessly in love with her, and instead of rejecting him when he first pursued her, she led him on, knowing she would never love him romantically. So, not only did she not leave my dad at the beginning of the relationship, she married him and had 3 kids. She continued to create situations that would hurt more and more people over time. Our family is not against LGBTQ and everyone is accepting, so she wouldn't have been rejected. I asked why. She knew she liked women. She stayed with my dad. She said it was because she knew he could give her a good life. I told her she was even more selfish than I had thought. I left and blocked her. My little brother told me she was hysterical on the phone. I don't care, but now she's coming to my house asking to talk. My dad keeps telling her to leave. I heard she broke up with her girlfriend, and Lisa sent me a message on Facebook asking if I could forgive my mom, because that's the only way they'll be together again. Update. So I spoke to my mom again, but before we met, I unblocked her to ask if she could make Lisa stop texting me. During our meeting, she explained that Lisa had been part of her and dad's friend circle, and they'd secretly been dating since my mom's bachelorette trip 16 years ago. I asked if my dad knew. She said no, and he thinks they started dating a year after the divorce. I stood up to leave. She begged me to stay and talk 10 more minutes. I agreed. She said that she and Lisa had broken up if it meant getting her kids back. She cursed Lisa for texting me and told her she was ruining any chance of building a relationship with us. Apparently, Lisa had bombarded my little brother with texts trying to get him to spend time with their mom. Lisa also stalked my older sister when she was at the park with her kids. She begged me to give her another chance. I just looked at her and laughed. I explained that she made things worse every time she spoke to me. I told her she was scum, and it was better if she never told me about the affair. I told her not to ever call or text me again because I already had a mother who was there for me, my siblings, and I haven't heard anything from my mom in a week. Although we're on bad terms, I hope she's okay.
Mother and the mother's girlfriend said they are separated until OP forgives the mother and accepts that she has been living a lie during the marriage. I think this exaggerated story about them being separated is just a tactic to get OP to accept mother. They should try a different lie.
OP explains his reasoning for never forgiving his mother so well. The fact that she knew from the beginning that she was only attracted to women and still chose to build a family with her ex-husband just because he could give her a good life is absolutely disgusting. Not to mention, she cheated on him for over a decade with someone her husband thought was a friend. Every explanation that came out of her mouth was just ridiculous.